Let's write a haiku, shall we? Now, I am not just interested in poetry. I'm also interested in many other things, including tabletop gaming. This isn't a tabletop gaming channel, so we won't talk much about it, but I think a metaphor from tabletop gaming might be apt to what we're going to talk about today. In tabletop gaming, there's this elusive quality that people are always looking for in a game. And this quality is summed up by the phrase, easy to learn, difficult to master. We don't want a game that's so detailed and meticulous and arcane in its rule set that you can't learn it, or that if you try and teach a friend, they'll get bored or frustrated halfway through the learning process. But also, you don't want a game like tic-tac-toe, say, that's so easy to learn and so easy to master that you actually run out of the ability to enjoy playing it quickly. So when we think about poetry, I think we can apply this easy to learn, difficult to master idea to different poetic forms. If we, say, looked at the epic, Paradise Lost, Divine Comedy, the Aeneid, the Iliad and Odyssey, that's a poetic form that would not fit the easy to learn, difficult to master. Difficult to learn, nearly impossible for anyone except a world-class genius to master. The sonnet might kind of be in the middle. It's not easy to learn how to write a sonnet. It's hard to keep the rhyme scheme and the metrical scheme and the argumentative structure in mind. It's possible to do. It's the kind of thing you could practice and learn to do probably within a few days or, over the course of a semester, I think, if we did a class on sonnets, we could learn how to write sonnets pretty well over the course of a couple of weeks. The haiku is, some have said, a little bit like tic-tac-toe in that it's easy to learn and maybe easy to master to the point where we could get bored of it. I think that someone like Matsuo Basho, or a 20th century writer like Richard Wright, who wrote a lot of haiku, I think they would say, actually, haiku are easy to learn and are quite difficult to master. Let's start today learning how to write a haiku. When I set out to write a haiku, I like to keep a couple things in mind. First of all, a haiku is, as we've spoken about before, a poem that's interested in sensations much more than ideas. Often I think a haiku fails when people decide, I want to talk about some giant concept. And basically it's 17 syllables of musing on a concept. Concepts can come in to haiku. Concepts are more present in tanka. They have a little more room to breathe, especially the tanka of Saigyo. The concept of truth is very important in Saigyo. But even in Saigyo's tanka, concrete imagery dominates and grounds ideas. In haiku, concrete imagery is kind of all you have time for. And yet the relationship between images, sounds, sights, smells, physical feelings can be evocative of concepts. So, I'm sitting here on a Thursday morning, and I'm looking out my window, and there's a tree trunk in front of me. All of that tree trunk is in shadow, except the very top branches. I think that's kind of interesting. It's something I've been noticing all week. I would like to write a haiku about it. So how would I do that? Well, I've got 17 syllables. I have 5, 7, 5. I also want to keep in mind that haiku is cognizant not just of physical sensations, but of time of year and of place. Now, the time of year is right now, it's mid-November. It's fall. So in Japanese haiku, you often have these lines of 5 syllables that will come at the beginning of a poem or at the end of a poem that's kind of a stock descriptor of the time of year. So something like this autumn evening, or the spring wind blows, or something like that. I really like the descriptor this autumn morning, and I think I want to use it in this haiku I'm going to write. So I could start out the haiku, this autumn morning, and then a description of the tree trunk. Now, because I have 2 lines to work with other than the autumn morning line, I think it would be cool to have one line that was about the tree trunk being in shadow, and then a line about the topmost branches being in light. I think that would be a cool juxtaposition. So I could start with this autumn morning, but I kind of feel like I don't want to do that. That feels a little bland to me. Let's save this autumn morning. Yep, I always have to try it out, even if I'm pretty sure that it's 5 syllables. You got to count them out. Often I've written a haiku and I've loved it and I've been so happy with it, and I come back to it a couple weeks later and I realize, oh no, one of the lines has 6 syllables in it. So this autumn morning, let's save it for the 3rd. The first line, I want to communicate that it's the trunk of a pine tree and it's in shadow. The trunk of a pine tree in shadow. Okay, if I just use those words, it's going to be too long. So let's condense. Pine's trunk in shadow. Okay, that's 5 syllables. Let's start with that. I don't love it, but let's start with that. Pine's trunk in shadow. But look, the top branches are in light. Okay, that would be too long. Pine's trunk in shadow. Top branches in light. Okay, top branches in light is 5 syllables. I have 2 syllables to play with. So let's see if we can do this. I don't like starting with the word pine. I feel like it's too abrupt and kind of too abbreviated. What if we said the pine's trunk is dark, but oh, the top is in light this autumn morning. I like the direction that's going. So I've drafted it, and now I would want to play with the lines. So the pine's trunk is dark. That doesn't give quite the specificity of shadow that I want. So I might go back to pine trunk in shadow and then kind of play with it back and forth to see what is good. I love the word dim. Sometimes I use the word dim too much. The pine's trunk is dim. Dimness communicates how light is falling on it, as opposed to dark, which could just be the color of the trunk. So the pine's trunk is dim. The top branches in light. The top branches in light. The top branches are in light. I kind of like that like that realization word. I would want to play with that. So this is how I would write a haiku. First, I would come up with, okay, what is my line that's going to situate us in the seasons, in time? And then I'm going to think about what are the things I want to describe and how can I break them up over the 2 lines that are left? Or maybe the 3 lines. Say I wanted to not care about the autumn morning, but I needed to communicate the autumn. We could do something like the autumn trees are still in shadow, but oh, the top branches are in light, or the top boughs are in light. I like boughs more. It communicates branches, but is shorter. This is one of the fun things about writing haiku, is that you can really, really play around with the possibilities of language and find words and word combinations that admit of more or less syllables. So boughs, if I need to get that whole idea in there quickly in 1 syllable, boughs works. But if I want to maybe expand it out, branches, upper limbs, you have a lot of possibilities. So we don't quite have a full haiku yet. We have a couple ideas for haiku. Probably I'd write both of those. One that has this autumn morning at the end, one that puts autumn as a descriptor of the trees, and then I'd let them percolate for a little bit, for a couple days, and then I'd go back and look at them. Thanks for hanging out and writing a haiku with us. Try it yourself today. Look out the window and start composing. Easy to learn, very difficult, I think, to master.